I want to start with something you might not have a clear answer to. Why do you feel different? Not better than others, not worse, just not quite the same. Like you're processing things on a different level. You notice things others don't. You think about things longer than most people would. And sometimes that feels like an advantage, but other times it feels isolating because it's hard to explain, hard to translate what's happening in your head into something simple. So instead, you just keep it to yourself. And over time, that creates distance, not because you want it, but because your experience isn't always being matched. So let's talk about it. The signs that you think differently than most people, and don't even realize it. The first sign is that you notice patterns almost instantly, not just obvious ones, subtle ones. The way someone changes their tone mid-sentence, the way a conversation shifts direction, the way certain behaviors repeat, and your brain connects those things quickly, sometimes without you even trying. You don't sit there and analyze consciously, it just happens. And that can be useful, but it also means your mind rarely switches off because it's always picking up something. The second sign is that you overthink, but not in a simple way. It's not just worrying, it's exploring. A single thought turns into multiple possibilities. What if this means something else? What if there's a deeper reason? What if I'm missing something? And the more you think, the more layers appear, until what started as something small feels complex, not because it is, but because your mind made it that way. The third sign is that you struggle with surface level conversations. Small talk feels empty, not useless, just incomplete. Because while others are comfortable staying on the surface, your mind automatically goes deeper. You want meaning, context, understanding. And when that's not there, you feel slightly disconnected, not from the people, but from the conversation itself. The fourth sign is that you replay interactions not out of insecurity, but out of curiosity. You revisit what was said, how it was said, what it might have meant. And even if everything went fine, your brain still looks for more clarity, more understanding, more accuracy. The fifth sign is that you're highly self-aware. You notice your own thoughts, your reactions, your patterns. You can step back and observe yourself, almost like you're watching your own mind work. And that sounds like a strength, but it can also be exhausting because there's no real off switch. The sixth sign is that you think ahead constantly, not just about what's happening now, but what could happen next. Possible outcomes, possible reactions, possible problems. And while that helps you avoid mistakes, it also creates pressure because now you feel responsible for everything that hasn't even happened yet. And the seventh sign is something deeper. You often feel out of sync, not because you don't understand people, but because you understand too much at once. While others are reacting in the moment, you're already processing context, meaning, possibilities. So your response comes from a different place, a deeper one, and that creates a subtle gap, not visible, but felt. And here's the part that matters most. None of this means something is wrong with you. It means your mind works differently, not better, not worse, differently. And that difference comes with both advantages and challenges, because the same mind that sees patterns quickly also struggles to ignore them. The same awareness that helps you understand others also makes it harder to disconnect. The same depth that gives you insight also creates complexity. So the goal isn't to change how you think, it's to understand it, to recognize when your mind is helping you and when it's overwhelming you. Because once you see that, something shifts. You stop trying to think less and start choosing when to go deeper and when to let things stay simple. Not everything needs to be analyzed. Not every thought needs to be explored. Not every possibility needs to be followed. And in that space, you find something that didn't exist before. Balance, where your mind still works the way it does, but you're no longer trapped inside it. You move between thinking and experiencing, between analyzing and just being. And maybe that's the real difference. Not that you think more than others, but that once you understand it, you can finally decide when to stop. And once you start seeing that, something else begins to change, not in your thinking, but in your relationship with it. Because before, your thoughts felt automatic, like something that just happened to you. Now, there's a small gap between the thought and what you do with it. And that gap matters, because for the first time, you realize something simple. You don't have to follow every thought. Some of them can just exist without turning into something bigger. And that's where the pressure starts to fade. Not completely, but enough. Enough to notice the difference, because before, a single idea could take over your entire focus. Now, it passes. Or at least, it doesn't stay as long. And that changes how you experience everything. Conversations feel lighter. Decisions feel faster. Moments feel more real, because you're not constantly stepping outside of them to analyze them. You're actually in them, and that's something most people who think deeply don't experience often. Presence, not perfect, but enough. There's also something else that shifts, your need for certainty. Before, you needed to understand everything, to feel okay, to feel in control. But now, you start seeing something clearly. Understanding everything was never the goal. It was just something your mind used to feel safe. And once you see that, you stop chasing answers that don't exist. You stop trying to solve things that aren't problems. And slowly, you become more comfortable with something that used to feel uncomfortable. Not knowing, not having full clarity, not being 100% sure. Because now, you trust something else. Your ability to handle what happens, not predict it, not control it, handle it. And that changes everything. Because when you trust that, your mind doesn't have to work as hard. It doesn't have to scan every detail. It doesn't have to prepare for every outcome. It can finally slow down. Not completely, but enough. Enough to feel like you're not always ahead of life, trying to figure it out, but actually inside it, living it. And maybe that's the real shift. Not becoming someone who thinks less, but becoming someone who isn't controlled by every thought, because your mind was never the problem. It just never learned when it's okay to stop. And now, it finally can. And once you experience that, even for a moment, you don't want to go back. Not to overthinking, not to constantly analyzing everything. Because now you felt something different, something quieter, something lighter. And you realize you don't need to understand everything to be okay. You don't need to solve every thought to move forward. And that's where real freedom begins, not outside, inside your own mind, where thinking is still there, but it's no longer in control.